Top 5 list! Let's go. Hey guys, how are you doing today? I have Magic, here with a top 5 meta list, and this is going to be a personal meta list. So right now, at my locals, luckily for me, at Play Nation, big shout out, at my locals we have a lot of diverse decks which are very strong and very popular in the format. Tri-Brigade, Eldritch, Drytron, Virtual World, Shadow Invoke Dogmatica, Shadow Despia Dogmatica, all of them are popping up, and this is going to be, from my personal opinion, playing against what are said to be the different top 5 decks. My personal top 5. So, things may change, people may have them in different tiers, but this is what's going to be for me. Coming in at number 5, I'm giving this one to Tri-Brigade. Yes, you may be thinking, Tri-Brigade at number 5, not a bit higher? So, for me personally, this deck has a few flaws. Secondly, the oomph it can bring, yes, it has a great removal effect, and it can get strong monsters and it can get through the deck. But I just don't see how this is going to hold a candle to the other top 4 decks. Yeah, it's good, but it's just not quite there. It can easily lose to one Zombie World, which is floating around in the format right now. Okay, so when there's multiple different decks that can play Zombie World, this deck that needs its Beasts, Beast Warriors and Winged Beasts is going to lose because they're now going to be zombies. Secondly, Lancia as well. This deck wants to banish. Lancia is a deck that's Lancia is a card that's appearing in a lot of players' side decks, mainly because of Crossout Designator. And so a hand trap that immediately counters this deck, being in everyone's side deck, just unintentionally, means that it's going to go down in the power list. Now, if Lancia wasn't floating around, I may be still giving it my dues, because it could probably just win through the grind against the Zombie World, get there before they get it out. But with Lancia on top of that, it just gets put back down. So that's why it's going to be in the top 5 spots. Coming through at number 4, I'm giving this one to Eldritch. Eldritch is a very, very strong deck, and now there's going to be multiple variants that I may be on about. Eldritch Zoo is still there, a bit like how Tri-Brigade can use Zoo. So Zoo engine in the sense of just to climb up into a Zeus. It's a very strong engine. However, this is going to be more specifically around Zombie Eldritch and a very heavy Trap Pro version of this. Again, Zombie World, I'm saying this card again. This card is about, and if you're playing a deck that needs to be specifically, for example, like Tri-Brigade, your monsters need to be a certain type to get out stuff. So if they're now zombies, where they don't, if they're not zombies, then you can play. If they're zombies, you can't. I'm waffling here, but this is what I'm trying to say. If you are going to lose to a Zombie World, and Zombie World's appearing in a lot of decks, then you're going to be ruined. This deck is one of them that plays the Zombie World. It's strong. Getting out a Doom King as well and banishing your opponent's cards, having a Monster Negate as well, having a card that stops hand traps. And Doom King can pop out in another deck as well, which I'll talk about later. I've been trialing it myself in my own personal deck, and it has popped up, and it has caused a lot of problems. But Eldritch being a big body as well, going from either 25 just standard or going up to 35 and being really hard to get rid of. Being able to, during the end phases, kind of just recycle their cards by doing the banishing. Yes, they can lose again to an Artifact Lancia, but they are such a grindier deck that they'll wait and then they can do it again. They are a very strong card, and also the back row they're playing. So you can, I've seen Eldritch decks that are going to be playing like a lot of Solemn packages, Super Polys. Needle Sealing and Torrential Tribute are 2 cards that have been popping up a lot recently, because all the decks are going to be playing a lot of cards, a lot of monsters. So this is a hard counter against that, and it is crazy. It is honestly crazy that some of the top decks right now are losing to one trap board wipe, and Eldritch are playing the trap board wipes. However, personally, the other top 3 decks just cut above the rest. Eldritch is very good, and all top 5, I'd say right now, are very sandwiched together. This is a hard list and a hard decision to make of who's number 1, who's number 2, 3, 4, 5. It's close, but Eldritch is definitely there, and I definitely would say, just through having Zombie World alone, makes it in the top 4 spot above Tri-Brigade. Coming in at number 3, this is going to be the biggest controversy. I'm giving this one to Drytron. Personally, Drytron, I haven't had the best experience with it. However, I haven't seen the crazy power. This is before the ban list. I know some Drytron players are only playing Eva at 1 anyway, but I've played and defeated Drytron with decks that aren't on this top 5 list. And not because they were and then they kind of went down and it changed. No, they weren't there because they weren't a top 5 deck. Drytron isn't as good as everyone think it is. It builds an amazing turn 1 board. However, you make them go second, they're not really doing a lot of a follow-up play. Secondly, they get countered very well by the next top 2 decks. Although they have a lot of resources to get through, again, another card, Zombie World, can hindrance them. Now, you may be wondering how. They want to be able to ritual summon using machines on field. You take away the on-field option and you have to leave them to the hand. Now they're running out of resources. So it can mean that the board they're building is going to be less than what they could have, just because you have a field spell on there that kind of is just there anyway. But this deck is strong, but the fact they haven't got a good follow-up, and then in addition they lose to the next 2 decks as well fairly, I think they have a good, they have a bad matchup against the number 1 and number 2 slot. So that's why they're only at number 3. Coming in at number 2, I'm giving this one, and I don't say this happily, to Virtual World. Personally, Virtual World is one of my top decks right now. I have this deck in real life. I also have the number 1 deck as well, but I personally enjoy playing this deck a bit more. I have a bit better of an interaction, and I feel like a lot of people are playing the number 1 deck as well. So there's not many people playing Virtual World, or not many people from when I was recording this playing Virtual World. It's a very good deck at getting out its combo with 1 cards. 1 Virtual World monster can kind of help you set up the combo. They can easily power through 1 or 2 hand traps. Usually the only ones you're going to see are going to be Ash Blossom, because Effect Veiler and Imperm, they might save for your Shenzhen, but then you can get that back out anyway on the next turn if they then destroy it. But yeah, mainly Ash Blossom, because a lot of your stuff activates in the hand, so you're not going to have too much of a problem. It's going to be able to make good boards, being able to make stuff like Zeus for 4 materials, making a Dragoon as well when you go with using Muddy Mud Dragon, and having a Crystal Wing with a Ultimar Zulking. That's quite a good board. They, again, like I said, they can easily get up a lot of resources, and it's an interesting deck. They can play Virtual World can play Zombie World. Again, another card that we know is causing problems for some decks, and it's just a powerful card. In addition, a little bit of spice I've been trying to use is using Beatrice. If you're going to use Beatrice to send Banshee on your turn to set up the Zombie World, why not on their turn, on the standby phase, send a Doom King? Could be a brick, but we do also do a lot of discarding, and there are other decks as well that have field spells, whether it be Eldritch playing their field spell, or Shadow Invoke Dogmatica playing Magical Meltdown. So you can easily get Doom King out, and then of course if you have the Zombie World anyway, you bring it out, you can start banishing, and you can also start negating cards. So I'd say it's a very strong, powerful deck, but the number 1 slot is a good counter to it. I think they're both good counters to each other, but I think the number 1 spot is there because it's just that little bit more powerful, and I'll explain when I get onto it. But the unfortunate weakness, I'd say, with Virtual World, is the inability to deal with back row hate. A Raigeki or a Torrential Tribute can really stop the deck in their tracks, and if their opponent is then going to be playing a deck that can then get a lot of damage done and maybe kill you in that turn, there's nothing you can do. Apart from playing maybe Solemn Judgments or having Dragoon, you don't really have many other outs to something like a Raigeki, which is really unfortunate. But luckily, with the current matchups and the current meta right now, it's not the biggest problem. You're not having to deal with that a lot, but it is something to take note when we go into further lists. Coming in at number 1, Shadow Invoked Dogmatica. A lot of people put it in the in-between, in like the middle of their list, at the bottom. Some people might not even have it there because they think the other decks are just better. This deck is crazy. A Winder is strong. There's no doubt about it, and it can't be destroyed by card effects. Having a Mechabot on field is strong. That's a banish and a negate. Yeah, so the banish part is also what makes it even that little bit better. They have just a lot of engines that are like 1-card starters, so Meltdown into Alistair, into Invocation, into a Mechabot, or into a Purgatrio. It's crazy. It's a very strong, good resources deck. The Dogmatica cards as well have just been reprinted, so it means a lot of people are going to be playing this deck. This has a high representation as well. In my personal opinion, I've seen so many people play Shadow Invoke Dogmatica because the cards are there, they went from really expensive to a lot cheaper. So people just ran to them to get to play one of these top tier decks. And that's also why it's up there. It has a great grind matchup as well. Being able to even bring out something like an Yugioh construct just to get rid of your opponent's special summoned cards with no problem. Having a window, having a Mechaba, and then all of the Dogmatica cards as well. Fleur de Lis is a problem card. It will boost itself up, it will special summon itself, and it will maybe negate a card on the field. Maximus is going to drain your extra deck, and if you're not playing counters to that specifically, you are going to struggle against this. I have to personally play, because there's already so many Sid players at my locals, I put in an Untis and an Omega in my extra deck. I have the space for it, and I've had to work space into my extra deck for this, but if it means that I'm not losing out on the other 13, I'll happily take away 2 cards. And a deck that makes other decks have to do that to deal with them, already going into it blindly, that's a powerful deck. And that is why Sid is number 1 on my personal top 5 meta decks. I'll give a honourable mention to PK. PK is a very strong deck right now. However, I haven't seen its power yet. I haven't seen it play. So I'm going to have to just leave it out for now and leave it for an honourable mention. Once I start to play against this deck a bit more and see the full power of what it can do, then yeah, because I know it can easily get into a Zeus, a Dragoon, and probably a lot of other cards. But this is something I haven't experienced yet, and I reckon next list it will probably be there. But for now, this is my top 5 meta deck. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment and subscribe. Let me know down below what other decks you'd like me to talk about, if you want to see any deck profiles, any other top 5 lists or ideas you want to see, and your personal opinion about the entire list. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.